Seneca on Why Chasing Makes You Weak. The more you chase, the faster it runs away. This is a law of life that no one escapes. You've seen it in relationships where desperation drives the other person farther and farther away. You've seen it in wealth, where the man who already has plenty never feels satisfied, running harder, sweating more, and collapsing under the weight of his own appetite. You've seen it in status, in fame, in applause, where those who crave recognition the most are the least respected. Seneca saw this in his own Rome, and he warned, "The man who spends his life running after external things loses his footing in himself. He becomes weak because all his strength is spent outward, never rooted inward." Strength to the Stoic is not about muscle or domination, it is about mastery of the self. Chasing anything outside yourself is to declare that your own being is insufficient, that your own soul is not enough. When you run after riches, you admit poverty in your heart. When you pursue applause, you confess emptiness in your character. Chasing is a confession of lack, and that is why it weakens you. The Stoic stands still. He does not grasp, he does not beg, he does not pant after what others hold. He chooses, calmly and deliberately, what is worth his attention. And in that choice, he becomes strong. Seneca would tell you, every man who runs after fortune runs away from himself. And so the one who chases is always tired, always hungry, always afraid of losing what he has yet to gain. What is worse, the moment he grasps what he sought, he discovers it has already lost its flavor, and the chase must begin again. Thus the chaser lives a life of slavery, shackled to his own restless desires. You weaken not because the world withholds from you, but because you keep confessing with every step that you cannot stand complete in yourself. Step back for a moment. Imagine if you ceased the chase. Imagine if, instead of begging the world to fill you, you realized you already hold within you the sufficiency you seek. Respect would come not because you demanded it, but because you carried yourself with dignity. Wealth would cease to own you because you knew how little a man truly needs. Love would grow naturally because people are drawn not to the desperate, but to the steady. That is the paradox. To stop running is the surest way to stand tall. Seneca's Rome was no different than our world today. Senators and generals lived their lives under the weight of ambition, clawing for a little more territory, a little more gold, a little more influence. Men sold their dignity to flatter emperors. Women were married off as bargaining chips. Poets recited their verses not for truth, but for applause. It was a culture of chasing, and Seneca himself, tutor to Nero, wealthy beyond measure, was not immune. He knew firsthand the poison of pursuit. He saw how the richest men lived in fear of losing their wealth, how the most powerful men trembled at the thought of being overthrown, how the most admired figures were secretly miserable. The world told them they were strong, but Seneca saw their weakness. Their lives were built on things they could never control. And is our age any different? Rome had its forums and colosseums. We have our feeds and screens. Rome had its public games and triumphal parades. We have our curated photos and endless updates. The Roman noble chased applause in the Senate. We chase likes on a post. The Roman merchant chased more land and gold. We chase more deals, more markets, more digits in the bank. The same disease, new symptoms. What Seneca diagnosed 2,000 years ago is still the plague of the human spirit today. We call it ambition when it is often slavery. We call it networking when it is often begging. We call it progress when it is often escape from the emptiness within. Seneca reminds us that there is nothing modern about this sickness. The world changes its costumes, but the human heart repeats the same errors. To be free, to be strong, you must learn what he taught. Stop the chase. The man who knows sufficiency cannot be bribed, cannot be enslaved, cannot be broken. And when the world sees such a man, it does not pity him, it respects him. For strength is magnetic, but it is only born in stillness, never in pursuit. Seneca often warned that the man who chases becomes a slave. This truth is difficult to accept because the chaser believes himself free. He believes he is choosing his path, seizing opportunity, directing his fate. Yet look closely. The thing he runs after has already set the terms. The man chasing wealth is bound to the fluctuations of markets and the approval of others. The man chasing love is chained to the moods and decisions of another's heart. The man chasing fame cannot rest unless eyes are fixed upon him, ears are open to him, and tongues are speaking his name. He is like a dog tied to a cart. The cart moves, and he must follow. He calls it pursuit, but it is compulsion, and compulsion is slavery. Consider the ambitious politician. He tells himself he serves the people, yet his days are consumed with pleasing donors, appeasing rivals, and flattering those above him. He cannot speak freely for fear of offense. He cannot act justly for fear of losing support. Every decision is filtered through the question, will this gain me power, or will it cost me power? He is trapped by the very thing he chases. Or think of the desperate lover, so consumed with winning another's attention that he bends his words, reshapes his habits, even betrays his own dignity. He becomes a stranger to himself. What is this but slavery to desire? And the workaholic who runs endlessly for wealth. His chains are forged of gold, his shackles polished with success, but shackles they remain. He cannot rest, cannot taste the life he is supposedly building because the hunger within is never quiet. Seneca insists that true freedom is found only when we reverse the equation. Do not let your value be set by the thing you pursue. Do not give external things the power to dictate your worth. Instead, claim mastery over yourself and let the world's goods come or go without unsettling you. When you no longer need them, you are finally free. To chase is to confess weakness. To stand still in sufficiency is to embody strength. The slave must run. The free man may walk, or even sit in peace, knowing nothing essential can be taken from him. This is why the Stoic divides life into two realms, what is in our control and what is not. Chasing always takes place in the realm of the uncontrollable. You cannot command fortune, you cannot force love, you cannot dictate respect. But you can command your own reason, your own choices, your own response. The moment you recognize this, you see the chains fall away. You discover that the things which once enslaved you had power only because you handed it to them. The illusion of chasing is that once you have caught the prize, you will finally be satisfied. But Seneca knew better. He wrote that wealth is not measured by what you gain, but by what you can do without. Chasing more never ends in sufficiency, because desire is a fire that grows with fuel. You gain, and immediately you want more. You achieve, and immediately the next peak seems mandatory. It is the very nature of desire to whisper that what you have is not enough. Look at wealth. The man who secures his fortune does not stop running. He begins to fear losing it. He wakes each morning not with peace, but with anxiety, wondering if thieves, politics, or fate will strip him bare. His fortune becomes his master, his vigilance, his prison. Or look at fame. The actor who gains recognition must labor twice as hard to remain in the spotlight, for the public's appetite is fickle. Today they love you. Tomorrow they forget you. The applause that once fed your pride becomes a desperate need you cannot live without. The chaser is never full. His hunger sharpens with every bite. Even love, when pursued as conquest, follows the same law. When it is sought from emptiness, it never heals the emptiness. It only magnifies it, because you begin to need more and more proof that you are valued. You begin to demand constant reassurance, constant attention, constant affirmation. And the very thing you thought would bring joy becomes a source of endless insecurity. Today, the illusion of more has found new forms. Scroll endlessly on a screen and notice how the hunger never ends. One video leads to the next, one image to another, one comment to another. You never arrive. There is no final satisfaction, only the restless motion of a mind convinced that the next refresh will finally fill it. But the next never does. This is not an accident. It is the nature of chasing itself. Seneca offers the antidote: sufficiency. He reminds us that nothing external can fill a soul that has not first chosen to be content. The illusion of more dissolves when you discover the power of enough. Enough is not a lesser life. Enough is freedom. It is the moment you say, "I already have within me what I need to live well." The man who knows enough no longer chases. He walks, he chooses, he rests. He is not owned by what lies outside him. And this, Seneca would tell you, is the greatest strength a human being can possess. Chasing is weakness because it makes you dependent. When you are always reaching outward, you place your strength in the hands of others. Seneca warned that the one who leans too heavily on fortune's gifts will collapse the moment fortune withdraws her favor. To depend on external applause is to live in constant fear of silence. To depend on wealth is to tremble when markets fall. To depend on another's affection is to live under the shadow of rejection. Dependence is fragility, and fragility is the opposite of stoic strength. Think of the man who cannot go a day without checking his status, his profits, his messages. He believes he is thriving, but in truth, he has built his entire sense of self on pillars that belong to others. If someone withdraws approval, his joy collapses. If someone surpasses him, his pride is wounded. If someone denies him, his peace is broken. He is not master of his soul, he is hostage to circumstances. Seneca would tell us that the greatest fortune is not to need fortune at all. The man who can sit with himself in sufficiency cannot be bribed, cannot be shaken, cannot be broken. This is why the Stoics often declared, "The wise man carries his wealth within." For when you carry it within, no thief can steal it, no empire can tax it, no disaster can burn it down. You are invulnerable because you are independent. The man who needs nothing possesses everything. This is not a slogan of indifference, but a declaration of power. Imagine someone who does not hunger for applause. How could you manipulate him? Imagine someone who does not crave riches. How could you tempt him? Imagine someone who is not terrified of rejection. How could you enslave him? Dependence is weakness, but freedom from dependence makes you untouchable. Seneca's voice echoes across centuries. Do not surrender your strength by needing what lies beyond your grasp. Train yourself to be sufficient, and you will walk among men as one who cannot be conquered. And yet here lies the paradox that life whispers again and again. When you stop chasing, many of the things you once longed for come to you without effort. Respect follows the one who does not beg for it. Love deepens around the one who does not demand it. Wealth is entrusted to the one who is not enslaved by it. The act of stillness, of ceasing to run, has a magnetism of its own. People admire calm. They trust composure. They are drawn to those who do not burn themselves out in restless pursuit. Think of the leaders you have admired. Was it their desperation that impressed you, or their steadiness? It is not the frantic man who wins respect, but the composed one. The general who holds his ground inspires more confidence than the soldier who charges blindly. The lover who is at ease with or without reciprocation is more attractive than the one who clings with fear. The colleague who does not scramble for recognition often receives it freely. This is the hidden law. By ceasing to run, you allow dignity to settle upon you. By refusing to beg, you invite others to offer willingly. Seneca understood this paradox. He knew that Rome's most admired figures were those who could walk away. Power, wealth, and influence flowed toward the man who did not need them. The Emperor Marcus Aurelius, though himself trapped in duty, often reminded himself that true honor lies not in the purple robes or the golden throne, but in the ability to remain calm, just, and self-contained. Epictetus, once a slave, commanded more respect in his poverty than many senators in their wealth, because he was free in the only way that matters, free from chasing. What happens when you stop running? You recover your strength. You stand upright. You begin to notice that the world's goods have always been like shadows. If you chase them, they flee, but if you stand still, they gather around you. But even more important than what comes to you is what you find within. When the noise of pursuit dies down, you hear your own reason again. You discover that contentment, peace, and dignity were never out there to be hunted. They were always waiting inside, silent, patient, ready to be chosen. Seneca's wisdom is not a call to poverty or passivity. It is a call to strength. And strength begins not with another frantic step outward, but with the courage to stop. Seneca reminds us that the most precious resource a human being possesses is not wealth, not status, not even health, but time. In his work on the shortness of life, he argued that life is long enough if you know how to use it, yet most squander it in pursuits that drain rather than enrich. Chasing is one of the greatest thieves of time, for it keeps a man running in circles, always reaching but never resting. A lifetime can be lost in the pursuit of things that do not last. To chase money is to hand over your days to profit and loss. To chase recognition is to sell your hours to the opinions of others. To chase pleasure is to squander your moments on the fleeting. And when the end comes, the chaser looks back and realizes he has lived everywhere but in the present. The economy of time is brutal but simple. You spend it every day and you never get a refund. Chasing ensures you waste it on what can never satisfy. Seneca wrote that people guard their possessions fiercely, yet they are careless with their time, allowing it to be stolen by distractions and shallow pursuits. He saw Romans who lived as if they would never die, yet died as if they had never truly lived. The modern world is no different. How many hours are sacrificed to endless scrolling, to empty competition, to restless ambition? How many mornings are spent racing toward goals that bring no peace? The chaser consumes his own life without tasting it. He is like a man who starves while surrounded by a feast because he is too busy running after another imagined table. To cease chasing is not to waste time, but to reclaim it. When you no longer live enslaved to the next achievement, you can finally inhabit the present moment. You can use time deliberately, invest it in learning, in reflection, in building character, in serving others. Seneca insisted that philosophy is not an escape from life, but the deepest way of living it, because it teaches you to prize each moment as if it were your last. The one who stops chasing is the one who realizes that time is life itself, and to squander it on illusions is the greatest loss of all. The true strength lies in choosing to live now, not someday. There is an important distinction between chasing and choosing. Chasing is driven by compulsion, by the restless hunger of desire that never asks whether the object is worthy. Choosing is guided by reason, by the deliberate act of valuing what aligns with virtue. When you chase, you are dragged by appetite. When you choose, you direct your steps with freedom. This difference is not subtle, it defines the quality of a life. Imagine two men in the same workplace. The first chases a promotion, bending every action to impress, to outmaneuver, to be noticed. He lives in constant anxiety, fearing he will be overlooked, resenting those who stand in his way. If the promotion comes, he is briefly satisfied, then immediately looks toward the next rung. His life is never still, never free. The second man chooses his work as an arena to practice excellence, integrity, and resilience. He does not beg for recognition, but his character draws it naturally. If the promotion comes, he accepts it as a chance to serve. If it does not, he is not diminished. His strength lies not in the outcome, but in the manner of his conduct. One man chases and is weak. The other chooses and is strong. This is the essence of Stoic living. Chasing makes you a servant to external rewards. Choosing makes you the master of your own will. Chasing is the act of saying, "I cannot be whole until I possess that." Choosing is the act of saying, "I am whole and I will direct my energy toward what is worthy of me." The first is endless slavery, the second is lasting freedom. Seneca's call is not to abandon action, but to purify it. Let your actions be chosen, not compelled. Let them arise from reason, not from craving, for only then does life cease to be a frantic race and become a deliberate path. Desire is natural to man, but when it is left without discipline, it becomes a tyrant. Seneca saw this clearly. Our desires are not evil in themselves, but when unchecked, they drive us into slavery. Chasing begins when desire outruns reason, when the hunger for something blinds us to its true worth. The man who cannot restrain desire is like a rider dragged behind a wild horse. He imagines he is in control, but he is only being carried by force. Chasing is nothing more than desire without discipline, passion without order, appetite without judgment. The Stoics did not seek to kill desire, but to train it. They taught that the soul must learn to distinguish between what is worthy and what is not, between what lies within our control and what lies beyond it. Seneca urged his readers to practice daily exercises of restraint. Delay gratification. Question the worth of what you crave. Remind yourself of how little is truly needed. The man who desires with discipline does not stop wanting, but he learns to want wisely. He no longer burns for what lies outside his reach. He no longer kneels before possessions or applause. He desires virtue, and virtue alone cannot be stolen. This is freedom, and this is strength. When desire is disciplined, it becomes fuel for growth. When it is undisciplined, it becomes poison. The man who lets desire rule his choices will always be chasing and never arriving. He will be consumed by longing, always imagining that the next step will bring peace. But Seneca tells us that peace does not belong to the next step. It belongs to the soul that has mastered its own hunger. The man who can command himself does not need to chase, for he already possesses the only treasure that matters, mastery over his own will. Chasing corrupts more than time and energy. It corrodes the very character of a man. The soul bends toward what it pursues, and over time it takes on the shape of that pursuit. When a man chases wealth, greed becomes his nature. He begins to value people only for what they can offer, to calculate every friendship in terms of profit. When a man chases approval, he becomes false, wearing masks to please the crowd, hiding his true thoughts to avoid disfavor. His soul grows hollow, filled not with substance, but with reflections of others' expectations. When a man chases pleasure, he becomes weak, unable to endure hardship, always seeking escape. In each case, the pursuit writes itself into the soul until the man is no longer free, but a caricature of what he once was. Seneca warned that no one corrupts his character in one instant. It happens gradually, step by step, each chase bending the will a little more. The man who once only wanted more money begins to cheat. The one who sought only applause begins to flatter and lie. The one who craved pleasure begins to waste his life in indulgence. The pursuit shapes the pursuer. Character, once bent, rarely returns upright. This is why chasing is so dangerous. It is not merely a waste of time. It is the slow erosion of the soul. The Stoic ideal stands in sharp contrast. To live without chasing is to let virtue be the sculptor of character. Courage, justice, wisdom and temperance shape a man into someone steady, trustworthy and whole. Such a man does not need to bend himself to desires because he has already chosen a higher pursuit, the pursuit of excellence in being human. When you chase what is lower, you descend with it. When you anchor yourself in virtue, you rise above the fleeting. Seneca's warning is not a call to deny life, but to preserve the soul. For the greatest tragedy is not to lose wealth or status or pleasure. The greatest tragedy is to lose yourself in the chase. Contentment for Seneca was not a retreat from life, but the very essence of strength. He often described the man who is rich with little, the man who carries wealth not in his purse, but in his soul. Such a man does not measure his fortune by what lies in his treasury, but by what lies in his character. He knows that enough is abundance. He knows that sufficiency is power. To be content is not to be stagnant. It is to possess a foundation so firm that no storm can shake it. Contentment is not weakness. It is the fiercest kind of independence. Consider how society often mocks contentment. The world calls the man who is satisfied unambitious, lazy, or uncompetitive. Yet watch closely. It is the content man who walks with freedom, while the restless man runs himself into exhaustion. The content man enjoys what he has, while the restless man is blind to his blessings, always staring at what is missing. The content man commands respect, for he does not beg for more. The restless man loses dignity, for his hunger is obvious. Seneca's voice rises above the noise of ambition. Contentment is not the refusal to grow, it is the refusal to be enslaved. It is the declaration that no external possession can determine the worth of a human life. Modern life only magnifies this truth. Those who step back from chasing often find themselves gaining more of what others chase. The one who does not need recognition is given it freely because people sense his authenticity. The one who does not need riches often finds opportunities flowing toward him because he cannot be bought. The one who does not need constant companionship becomes magnetic because independence has its own attraction. Contentment radiates strength. It sends a message. Here is a person who is whole, and wholeness in a fractured world is irresistible. That is why Seneca insists that the content soul is richer than any emperor. But how does one move from chasing to contentment? It is not enough to admire the principle, one must practice it daily. Seneca offers a path, not in grand gestures but in small, deliberate steps. The first step is to define clearly what lies within your control and what does not. Chasing is always directed at what lies beyond you, while choosing is directed at what belongs to your will. Write this distinction upon your mind. You cannot command fortune, but you can command yourself. You cannot dictate events, but you can dictate your response. By living in this awareness, you withdraw energy from the futile and invest it in the fruitful. The second step is to withdraw your admiration from false goods. Seneca taught that the world deceives us into admiring wealth, rank, and luxury, but these are not true goods. They are indifferent, temporary, and uncertain. Train your soul to admire virtue instead. Courage, justice, temperance, wisdom. When you look at a man, ask not how many servants he commands, but whether he commands himself. Ask not how much gold he possesses, but how much fear he has overcome. By shifting admiration, you shift desire. What you admire is what you will pursue. Purify admiration, and chasing will lose its grip. The third step is to practice daily sufficiency. Gratitude and simplicity are the training ground of the free soul. Eat modest meals and remind yourself that you could live well even with less. Sleep on a hard bed from time to time so that comfort never enslaves you. Rehearse poverty in imagination so that fortune cannot terrify you with its threats. Each exercise whispers the same truth: I can endure without. And when you know you can endure without, you no longer chase desperately after. You learn to stand calm in sufficiency, unshaken whether fortune smiles or frowns. The final step is to redirect desire toward virtue. Chasing will not disappear until it has a higher target. Desire is a force of nature. It cannot be killed, only transformed. Aim it at what cannot be taken from you. A noble character, a just action, a wise thought, a temperate choice. These are treasures beyond theft, beyond decay, beyond fortune's reach. Seneca himself practiced writing letters, not to impress Rome, but to refine his own soul and to guide others toward freedom. That was his chase, not for applause, but for wisdom. So let your energy, your ambition, your hunger be harnessed not by possessions, but by virtue. For virtue is the only pursuit that strengthens you as you run, the only chase that liberates instead of enslaves. Success for the world is measured in possessions, in followers, in applause. But Seneca dismantles this illusion. He reminds us that true success is not found in what you accumulate, but in what you master. You may build palaces, but if you cannot govern your own thoughts, you are still a slave. You may command armies, but if you cannot command your own desires, you are still weak. You may receive endless praise, but if you cannot stand silent in sufficiency, you are still empty. Success without mastery of self is merely a decorated prison. Seneca's words cut sharply. Wealth is the slave of the wise and the master of the fool. The difference lies in relationship. The wise man holds wealth lightly, using it as a tool, never allowing it to define him. If fortune grants it, he accepts it with moderation. If fortune removes it, he remains unbroken. The fool, however, clings to wealth as if it were life itself. He obeys its demands, sacrifices his peace for its increase, trembles at the thought of its loss. Wealth becomes his master, and he, though rich in possessions, is poor in soul. This principle extends to every form of success. The applause of men can inspire the wise, but it enslaves the fool. Status can be used by the wise, but it consumes the fool. Success is never dangerous in itself. It becomes poison when the soul depends on it. To reframe success is to see it not as something to chase, but as something to hold rightly if it comes. The man who makes virtue his measure cannot be defeated. If he acts with justice, he is successful, even if no one notices. If he remains courageous, he is successful, even if the world scorns him. If he lives temperately, he is successful, even if others mock his simplicity. This is a success that cannot be stolen, because it is rooted not in what happens to you, but in what you choose to be. Seneca urges us to lift our eyes from the false trophies of the world and fix them on the only prize worth winning: mastery of the soul. What does it look like to live as one who does not chase? Seneca and the Stoics paint the portrait of the sage, the unchased man, calm and unshaken in the midst of storms. He does not run after fortune, yet fortune often finds him. He does not crave admiration, yet admiration clings to him. He does not beg for love, yet his composure draws others near. He stands still, and the world turns around him, unsettled by his steadiness, attracted by his strength. The unchaste man is magnetic, not because he seeks attention, but because he does not need it. Marcus Aurelius, though an emperor surrounded by temptation, modeled this spirit. His meditations reveal a man constantly reminding himself that purple robes and golden crowns are nothing but wool and metal. He sought to remain simple, rational, and just, even when ruling an empire. His dignity came not from chasing Rome's glory, but from standing anchored in philosophy. Epictetus, once a slave, embodied the same truth from the opposite station. With nothing but his mind, he declared himself freer than emperors, because no one could force him to surrender his reason. These examples show that the unchaste life is not dependent on rank or fortune. It can be lived by the powerful and the powerless alike, because it is built on inner mastery, not outer circumstance. The unchaste life is not idle. It works, it serves, it loves, but it does so without desperation. It gives freely because it is not hungry for return. It acts courageously because it is not afraid of loss. It speaks truthfully because it does not beg for approval. The unchaste man is a paradox. He stands still, yet he moves the world. People trust him because he does not manipulate. They admire him because he does not flatter. They follow him because he does not seek followers. He is free, and in his freedom he carries a strength that those who chase will never know. This is the life Seneca calls us to, the life of dignity, sufficiency, and unshakable calm. The lesson is simple, yet it cuts to the core of how we live. Chasing weakens, stillness empowers. The world will tell you that motion is strength, that constant striving is progress, that restless ambition is life. But Seneca tells you the opposite. The frantic man is not strong, he is fragile. The desperate man is not powerful, he is enslaved. The one who chases spends his days running from emptiness and ends by collapsing into it. True power belongs to the one who stands firm, who knows that sufficiency lies within, who refuses to let his worth be measured by what lies beyond his grasp. Return to the image that began this reflection, the man who runs after shadows. The more he reaches, the faster they flee. He exhausts himself, he grows bitter, he grows hollow. Then imagine another figure, calm, composed, unhurried. He does not chase, yet light and shadow both fall around him. He does not beg, yet respect follows him. He does not cling, yet love surrounds him. This is the paradox Seneca offers us. What you seek will not come by pursuit, but by refusing to be enslaved by it. Dignity, admiration, peace, even prosperity often flow to the man who does not chase, because he has chosen freedom. And freedom draws all things toward it. The ultimate lesson is not about wealth or fame or power. It is about direction. Chasing is running without aim, driven by appetite, enslaved by fear of missing out. Stillness is not inaction, but clarity. It is knowing what is worth your energy and what is not. It is choosing to walk in the path of virtue rather than sprint after illusions. Seneca urges us to step out of the race, not to withdraw from life, but to live it more deeply, For the man who stops chasing can finally see clearly where he is going, and he discovers that peace was not at the finish line, but in his own soul all along. So here is the charge to you. Stop running. Stop exhausting yourself in the endless pursuit of things that will never fill you. Choose instead to stand in sufficiency, to rest in the strength of a disciplined soul. Let others chase, let others collapse, let others call slavery success. You have a higher call. You have the chance to live free. Seneca's words echo across time, daring you to resist the madness of the crowd and to embody the strength of stillness. Stand still. Be content. Live free. That is the secret, and that is the strength no chaser will ever know.